Hey guys, and welcome to our third flipped video lesson in Unit 2. We've talked about solving our equations with 1 and 2 steps. We've talked about what a solution really is and making sure we understand the general idea. We've talked about our specific system or process for solving our equations, and then we actually looked at some simplification steps that are going to make solving our equations a little bit more complex. Today, we're going to look at another piece that's going to make our equations more complex, and it's probably the one you're going to like the least, right? And that is what happens when our constants or our coefficients, the numbers that are in our equation, are fractions. I know, I said the F word, but we're going to show you in this video how to deal with those fractions in a way that will be as painless as possible. So we have kind of already looked at equations where it's a simple kind of one-step equation, such as this example you see here. 2/3 times x equals 26. There's really only one thing to do. We cancel the coefficient of 2/3 and get x by itself. And we do that by multiplying by its multiplicative inverse, or its reciprocal, right? So we multiply both sides because of our multiplication property of equality by 3/2. The 3's cancel, the 2's cancel, and I'm left with x equals 39. So if the equation with a fraction is very, very simple and only has one fraction as a coefficient, we can do this. This can be a method we can use. However, we're going to run into equations that are not so simple, such as this equation here. Now we still have 2/3 x, but you can see there's a 2/5 x on the other side, and we have variable terms on both sides. And one of the constants is a fraction as well, 7/15. We can't just multiply each side of the equation by a fraction and have x be able to be alone. We're going to have to come up with a way that we can do this to deal with all of these fractions. And there is a good way to do that. And we like to call that the least common multiple canon. The reason we choose the idea of a canon is we know fractions are something most students don't like. So what do you do with things you don't like? You blow them up. And you'll see as we go through the example, working through this process kind of resembles firing a cannonball at your equation. So the first thing we have to be able to do is look at the denominators of all the fractions and find the least common multiple of those denominators. So in our example, the denominators are 3, 5, and 15. And when I say the least common multiple, that means the smallest number that all three will go into evenly. The smallest number that all three will go into evenly. So what is the smallest number that all 3, 5, and 15 can all go into evenly? And that is 15. So the least common multiple is going to be our cannonball, if you will. That is what's going to be fired at our equation and is going to do the damage to destroy our fractions. So once we've found our least common multiple here, our 15, what we're going to do is we are going to fire it at the entire equation. And our process of firing is really just going to be multiplication. You are going to multiply each term in the equation by that least common multiple. Not just the fractions, the non-fraction terms as well here. So what's going to happen is 2/3 times 15 is 10. So that becomes 10x. 15 times 8 is 120. 2/5 times 15 is 6x. And 7/15 times 15 is just 7. So what we've done is we have now taken an equation and rewritten it so that it has no fractions. But what we're going to notice as we start to work on this in class is the solution for both of these equations is exactly the same. Think of it like changing your clothes. When you come to school today, you're going to wear a certain set of clothes. Now, the next day, hopefully, you're going to wear a different set of clothes and you're going to look slightly different. You won't look the same as you did the day before. But you didn't change who you are. Your DNA, your feelings, your thoughts, the things you like didn't change just because you changed your outward appearance. And that's what's happening with these equations. The equation with fractions and the equation below it without fractions are really the same equation, they've just changed their clothes. And we know they're the same because when we find a solution, that same solution will make both equations true. So to review here, our least common multiple canon hits every term in the equation. The only place that is safe from the least common multiple canon is any terms inside parentheses. We kind of think of those as a bomb shelter, right? If you remember back, if you've ever watched the videos in history class, the bomb shelter was underneath ground, a place you went in case we were getting bombed in a war or something like that. So the parentheses, we'll see an example in just a little bit, are going to be safe. So if you have any questions at this point, if you're not understanding how these equations are the same, please make note of that, bring that to class, and we can discuss that some more. So let's look at some examples here. We can see in the first one, we have two fractions, and the denominators are 4 and 5. So the first thing we have to do is find the least common multiple of 4 and 5, which is 20. So now I'm going to take my entire equation, all three terms, and I'm going to multiply them by 20. And what I'll end up with is 15x plus 120 equals 8. Now this is a two-step equation. Eliminate the constant by adding 120 to both sides, divide by 15 to eliminate the coefficient, and I get negative 112 over 15, or that should be negative 7.46. So make a note of that, guys. I'm sorry, I forgot to bring the negative over with the 7.46, but that should be negative as well. And we're okay with you leaving it as an improper fraction of negative 112 over 15. So in our next example here, we again need to find the least common multiple of 3 and 4, which is 12. Now here's the deal. When we fire our cannon and when the 12 gets multiplied, it's going to get multiplied by all the values that are not in parentheses. The 2x minus 1, what's highlighted in red, is inside the bomb shelter. So they are going to be safe and they're not going to get hit. So we can see the 12 is going to be multiplied by the 1/3, by the 1/4, and by the 6th. And what we'll end up with is 4 times 2x minus 1 plus 3 equals 72. Well, at this point, we now have some parentheses to simplify, like we did in our previous video. We have some like terms to combine, like we did in our previous video. And then it's a two-step equation like we had in the first video. Add 1 to both sides, divide by 8. 73 over 8 is our solution. So we can see that by using the least common multiple canon, we can rewrite our equations so that the clothes they're wearing don't have any fractions in them. And that makes it a lot easier to work with. So we've done some examples together. So here are 4 examples on your own to practice. So please pause the video and try these now. Well, let's see how you did. Hopefully you got these values as your solutions for these equations. If you didn't, if this is still confusing, please, 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 I'm begging you, come to class with questions about these problems in the notes. We are expecting you to be trying these problems on your own. We don't believe you can figure these problems out just by looking at them and doing the work in your head. We need to see some work. We need to see that you attempted it so we know what questions you have. Well, that brings us to the end, and hopefully, now that you know you can blow up fractions, it's a happy one. We'll see you in class.